Hello. Right, so I thought I'd do another little video on the EB4. This is the Thunder Tiger EB4 S2, or technically the S2.5. I just wanted to kind of clarify a few things really, because I've been asked a lot of questions recently about various different things to do with EB4s. Mostly things like what modifications can you do? Are they still good enough to keep up with the modern stuff, the modern 1/8 scale nitro cars? How much it costs really to do that kind of thing, and also what parts that I've used, i.e. what makes and things that they are. So basically I thought I'd do a quick sort of update video really, and try and explain a few more things to do with the EB4, but also I wanted to take this time in this video to explain something about the pull starts and the one-way bearings on the Thunder Tiger EB4s. This is pretty much across the range as well. So this is the EB4, the Mark 1, the EB4 S2, the S2 Pro, the S2.5, and the S3 as well. What I'm going to mention covers all of those cars. So we'll start with that first. So Thunder Tiger basically as a make unfortunately no longer exists really. I'm not sure if they went bust or if they just liquidated or changed hands. I'm not entirely sure. However, as a result of that, parts are now getting quite hard to find. You cannot get anything new from Thunder Tiger anymore. So things like pull starts, gasket kits, stuff like that, even like carburetors, clutch housings, all sorts. If you want genuine Thunder Tiger, you're going to either have to find it secondhand, or you're going to have to be extremely lucky and find someone that's got new old stock, either in a model shop or online or something like that, to hopefully be able to find the parts that you need. But if you can't find the parts you need, then on eBay there are plenty of online companies that do stock parts that will work. Air filters and stuff like that, pretty easy really. Yeah, they're quite generic, so you can kind of use any air filter really. Same with the exhausts. You don't have to use an uprated one like this. You can use pretty much any 1/8 scale exhaust. Just obviously bear in mind whether it's for a side exit exhaust, a rear exit exhaust, or things like that. But most of them will fit in terms of the exhausts and things like that. Pardon me. Clutch housings, again, very generic. Doesn't have to be genuine Thunder Tiger. You can get pretty much anyone that you need. If you are going to buy an aftermarket clutch bell, the housing, and you want to keep your car running the same, i.e. you don't want to make it slower to accelerate or faster to accelerate or anything like that. If you want to keep it exactly the same, then you'll need to count how many teeth you have on your clutch bell, which is this bit here. So count how many teeth you have on that, and then just go on eBay and type in, say it's a 17 tooth, then just type in 1/8 scale nitro 17th tooth clutch bell, and you should find plenty on there. Clutches again, pretty generic again, so you can find most of those on eBay. Most clutch kits will fit a Thunder Tiger 21 engine and the 28. So again, just have a look at what you've already got on your car and go from there. You can get upgraded ones, so you can get metal ones, which is what I've got on here. This clutch has been on this engine now for a few years, quite a while. This clutch has been on the engine and it's absolutely fine still. It's lasted really well. The other good thing about a metal clutch shoes, the good thing about those over plastic is plastic obviously is much softer and breaks much more easily, so the more you use it, the more dust you're going to get, the more mess it's going to make. So plastic clutches, yeah, they work, they're okay and everything, but you will get more mess with them and they are more likely to fail. The metal ones they just tend to be a bit better really in every way. From what I've found anyway. I mean, some people might prefer a plastic one, but it just doesn't really sound right, does it? Plastic clutch. Nah. So yeah, go for the metal one, I would. Right. So, I'll explain the little issue that I said at the start of this video. I'll explain that now because I've been having an issue with this car, with this engine, trying to start it. And I've been racking my brains for a while. I've had EB4s for years, I've had nitro cars for years, and I could not work out what was going on. At first, I've done another video, which you may have already seen, but I've done another video explaining how to fit a pull start and how to change the starting shaft on the back of the engine, which is all in behind here. Because I originally thought that the problem I was having, I thought was down to the starting shaft. I'll explain why. So, as I said, Thunder Tiger as a company doesn't really exist anymore, so you have to buy aftermarket parts most of the time. Pull starts are one of the most common things to fail on a nitro engine, so that's probably going to be the one that you're going to replace more than anything else, other than glow plugs. And on most engines, that's absolutely fine, not a problem. Doesn't matter if it's a stock engine, it could be a Pico, could be a Rossi, could be a Force engine. Oh, there's loads out there. It could be pretty much any of those engines, and usually, if you can't find a genuine pull start, you can use one of the cheaper eBay ones. And there's lots out there. The only one I wouldn't recommend buying is the cheap one. So we're talking like 3 or 4 quid. Don't even bother with that because they're crap. The mechanisms inside them are pretty weak, and the string that they use, the cord, I mean, it's rubbish, honestly. Like 3 or 4 pulls and it's done. That's it. They're crap. So don't buy one of those. But the plastic housing, what they're made of, that and the spiral inside what the strings wrap round, that's fine, that's okay. And there are companies out there that will take these cheaper pull starts and modify them so that they are as good or better than an original Thunder Tiger pull start. The company I'm using at the moment is run by, I believe is just a guy on his own. I'm not entirely sure on that, don't quote me. But he's been very helpful to me. He's managed to sort out the issue that I had, which I will explain. And the quality of his pull starts, from what I've seen so far, are very good. So I would recommend that you use this guy for your pull starts. So, why can't you use any other pull start with a Thunder Tiger engine? Well, the reason is the one-way bearing. So, on a standard Thunder Tiger engine, the one-way bearing, it looks slightly different to a normal one-way bearing. I think I do have one, so I will pause the video a second and see if I can find it, and then I can show you. Right, I'm back again. That was a waste of time. Cannot find it, so apologies for that. Anyway, I'll explain it. Right, it's pretty easy to explain. So, if we have a look at this one-way bearing, so this one is actually a cheap Chinese copy. Right, this does not look like a standard Thunder Tiger one-way bearing. It's the same size nut, which is 12mm, but it doesn't look the same. So, on a normal Thunder Tiger one-way bearing, I think it's a 14mm bearing. It's not 12mm. The hole is the same, the shaft size is the same, but the outer diameter, so the nut basically, that's a 14mm on a standard Thunder Tiger one-way bearing. But the biggest difference, you look at this bearing, it's basically just a nut and the little ridge on top there for the bearing. So that would slide, so the little ridge is there. That would slide onto your shaft that way. And then obviously the pull start goes over there and you pull it and away you go. Well, on the Thunder Tiger one, you've got an extra little lip on the end of it, and it's just round. It's not got the nut part on it, it's just round. And that slots perfectly into a genuine Thunder Tiger pull start. Pardon me. But that bearing will not fit any other pull start. So the cheap copies on eBay and the ones that have been modified by this guy who I said, they will not fit a standard Thunder Tiger one-way bearings. So basically you can't get a pull start to fit, so you can't start your car. So what you have to do is you have to buy another one-way bearing, 12mm one-way bearing, because these aftermarket pull starts only fit 12mm one-way bearings. So you go on eBay and you type in 12mm one-way bearing, yeah? Have a look. Loads come up. There's some on there ranging from about £3 up to about £10, 12, maybe even £14 for a one-way bearing. And what are you going to do? You're going to look at the £3 one and think, well, why would I spend 14 quid when I can get one for £3? That's exactly what I did at first. I thought, yeah, I'll just get the cheap one. It looked exactly the same, so I couldn't see any difference. Anyway, I bought one, fitted it, pulled it over a couple of times before I fitted the engine back to the car. Seemed okay. Lovely, great. Went out with the car, went to start it. I maybe got 2 or 3 full pulls, and it just seized up. The string wouldn't go back in, wouldn't recoil. I was thinking, what's going on here? Like, the pull start was still working, and I could feel the spring inside still had tension, so I knew it hadn't stuck, or snapped rather, but it just wouldn't recoil. I was like, what was going on? So, took the pull start off, and the one-way bearing had seized, so it was no longer one way. It was just stuck in both directions. Forced around for a bit, managed to get it to free up. So maybe it was just a one-off. Put it all back together again, tried again, same thing happened. It was doing me head in. So, went back on eBay, bought another one-way bearing, this time one for about £6. So it was double the price of the first one. Fitted that, lasted 4 or 5 pulls at most, so pretty much the same as the first one, and seized up again, straight away, seized up again. Now I'm getting really annoyed by now, and I was thinking, well, why are these bearings keep seizing up? They're brand new. They look absolutely fine, they feel fine, they're brand new, you know, why are they seizing up? I couldn't work out what was going on. So I thought, maybe it's the starting shaft, because it is an old engine, this engine. I've had it for a very long time, and it is the original engine. It's got mods to it, but, you know, the internals and the starting shaft, they're original. So I was thinking, well, maybe it's the starting shaft, maybe it's slightly worn out, and it's, I don't know, got some kind of rough patches on it or something, causing the bearings to fail early. So, okay, fine. I managed to find a new, old stock Thunder Tiger starting shaft. So, brilliant. Bought that, took all the engine apart, fitted the starting shaft, fitted yet another one-way bearing, again another £6 one, so that was my third one now. Fitted that, went out, tried it, same thing happened again. I was losing my patience, so I found a guy on eBay who is called the Pull Start King, right? Good name. I would agree with that. So yeah, this guy's called Pull Start King. Long story short, spoke to him about the issues I was having, and straight away he said, it's because you're buying cheap Chinese copy bearings, right? I didn't even know this. I mean, they weren't coming from China, they were coming from England, so I didn't know that they were Chinese copies. But anyway, that's what he said. He said, you're buying cheap Chinese copy bearings, you need a decent bearing. And he explained to me how to tell the differences between these cheap copies and the normal bearings, because they are very, very slight, and if you don't know what to look for, like I didn't at first, then you won't really know, and you could end up just keep buying bearings and wasting your money. But anyway, he was right, 100% right. I bought one of his bearings, I think it was £10 or something like that, around £10 or £12. That's a good price. I mean, that's not a bad price compared to some of the other ones. It was a fair price. And I was a little bit dubious, I must admit. Nothing against the guy. I was just a bit dubious myself, you know, having already tried 3 bearings that basically looked the same as far as I was concerned. I thought, how is this going to make any difference? Well, anyway, it did. It did make a difference. It solved my problem. The engine now runs brilliantly. I can pull it as many times as I want and do what I want with it, and it's back to normal again. So everything is great. And it's all thanks to the guy who calls himself the Pull Start King. So, pull starts, if you need one, do it that way. If you can't get a Thunder Tiger pull start, which I very much doubt you will, go on eBay and buy yourself one from the Pull Start King. Okay, they look like this. So if you get yourself one of those, then you won't go wrong. He also upgrades the cord, so the cord inside the pull start is no longer crappy shit string. It's a good cord. It's high quality. I think it's Kevlar, not 100% sure, but either way, it's a much better cord than the standard one. And his one-way bearings are, as I've said, very good, and they do actually work. So yeah, buy yourself one of his one-way bearings and one of his pull starts, and you should be good to go with your Thunder Tiger engine. Whether it's a 21 or a 28, they're both the same size pull starts and bearings, so you should be good to go. So that's basically that. I don't think I needed to cover anything else. No, I've said about the bearings. Yep. So that's all fine, bearings and everything. Right. Modifications. I'll try and cover this quickly, or as quickly as I can. So to my engine. It's a 21 engine, and I've got a vented clutch bell, as you can see. So there's vents in that, it's not solid. That just helps it cool the clutch better, it doesn't get as hot. And obviously any dust or anything that does come out, it doesn't get stuck inside there and create a horrible nasty mess. The clutch itself is metal, you can just see that behind the clutch bell there. It's a 14 tooth clutch bell, which I believe was the standard amount of teeth for the standard one, so the only difference is it's vented. It's slightly lighter, I suppose, as well. And we've got the metal clutch on it. Air filter. Now, these are sometimes frowned upon. People don't like putting these kind of air filters on nitro engines because most of the time they don't really do you any good. But if you do it properly, then they are very good. They do last a long time, and you will actually get better airflow with one. But there's one way you need to do it. So if you buy one of these filters standard, if it's a mesh one like that, it's just a stainless steel mesh filter. If you just whack that on as it is, then I mean it will filter, but it's not going to be great because it's a mesh, so fine dust and things like that's still going to get through. So what you need to do is the foam on your standard air filter, if you stuff that up inside the mesh filter and with your finger or screwdriver or whatever you can in there, press it around the edge so that it sits flush with the inside of that mesh, then you're okay, because you're going to get double the filtration. It's still going to be good airflow, but you're not going to get the fine particles of dust and stuff going in there. So if you want to use a mesh filter, then that's probably the way to go. The other little car breather filters, they're all right. You know, they're not great, but they're all right. And I think more than anything, they look quite nice, which is why I think some people tend to use them. But as long as you buy a decent quality one, not a cheap crappy one, and it's half decent quality, it's good material for the filter, then you should be all right, really. So again, personal choice, but if you want to use one, then that's what I would recommend. The cylinder head on this, it's not a standard EB4 Thunder Tiger cylinder head. It is a Thunder Tiger head, but it's from America, and I don't know why, but in America the cylinder heads on Thunder Tiger cars were different to they were in Europe and the UK, which is where I am. Don't know why, it's just how they are. But anyway, I think they look much nicer. If you look at it, it's kind of like got little slants out of it. It just looks much nicer than the standard round Thunder Tiger heads that we get over here. It was very expensive for what it was, for basically just a cylinder head. It was very, very expensive. But it looks good and it does the job. It works really well. So that's why I bought that. And it was obviously a straight swap as well, because it is designed for this engine. It just looks slightly different. The exhaust. The exhaust is from CPV Racing. You can just see it on there. It's a fully tuned pipe. It's got 2 chambers inside it, so you can unscrew it, and there's a little sort of filter chambery thing on the inside which you can adjust and move it about to change the flow from these 2 exhaust pipes. Or If you're a bit nuts and you want it to be extremely loud, like me, you can just remove that chamber completely, and then it's just an open exhaust, nothing in it at all, and it will come out of these two pipes. The gases will come out equally, but it is very, very loud. It sounds great, don't get me wrong, really sounds good for a little nitro engine. And it did improve performance as well. The acceleration from 0 to, say, midway top speed really shot up. I mean, it made a huge difference from doing that. But again, that's down to personal choice. You can adjust yours however you want them. But as far as an exhaust go, this is brilliant. I've used it for a long time. I've used it on other nitro cars as well, 1/8 scale, and it is good. It's really, really good exhaust. Works really well. Suspension. So on your standard Thunder Tiger EB4, your suspension will have a medium shock oil in it, and it will be most likely set up for off-roading because they are pretty much an off-road buggy. If you want to keep it for off-roading and use it on gravel and grass and things like that, then just leave it as it is. The standard suspension is very good and plenty good enough. If you want to make it for road use only, like I have, then obviously you'll want road tyres, not big knobbly off-road tyres, but you'll also want to lower the suspension slightly. There's a screw on either side of the wishbones, and you can adjust that, screwing it in or screwing it out, and that will change the height of the car. So again, if you want it on road, you're going to need it a bit lower. You need road tyres. You need to stiffen the suspension up by adding some of those little slot in things that you get with the car. So stiffen the springs up, lower the suspension, add road tyres, and then finally the shock oil. Buy yourself a thicker shock oil, drain the shock oil out of the standard shocks, and then fill it back up again with the thicker oil, screw it all back together, and job done. You'll have much, much better handling car if you want to use it for road use. Don't do that if you want it for off-road use, because it will probably ruin it. Fuel, I've got one of those fuel primer squirter things. They're great, they work really well. I've got another one over here, which I'm going to fit to my other EB4. Haven't fitted it yet, but they're great, really good bits of kit. And again, they work really, really well. They just look like this. And it saves you the hassle of sticking your finger over the exhaust and pulling away at your pull start to try and prime the fuel into the engine. Instead of doing any of that, you just connect this in between your fuel lines from the tank to the carburetor, and then you just squeeze that a few times and it automatically primes the fuel through. And in the extra bonus, that there's also a filter inside here as well for the fuel. So not only does it filter the fuel, but it saves you a hell of a lot of hassle fiddling around with, you know, what I just said. So definitely get one of those. That's really, really good. Recommend getting that. I've got an aluminium fuel cooler as well on the car. They are pretty self-explanatory. The gases from the fuel tank, when they recirculate round, they're obviously warm. And the hotter that your car gets, the warmer they're going to get, and you will lose performance if they keep getting too hot and stuff like that. You can end up having fuel bubbling back into the tank and things like that because it gets so hot. So buy yourself a fuel cooler, and that basically fits between the lines from the tank and the exhaust. And it just cools the exhaust gases, basically cools them down. Get yourself a metal one and mount it somewhere where there's airflow, because they are only air cooled. So you can mount it on the front of the car somewhere, maybe on the body posts, or somewhere that's going to get airflow anyway, and then that will solve that problem for you. So yeah, that is what I would recommend. In terms of the one-way bearings, just quickly before I finish this video, the way to tell the difference between a cheap Chinese copy one-way bearing and a good quality one-way bearing. So you're probably not going to see this on camera, but take my word for it. I'll try and get it to focus. So, is it going to focus? Nope, it's not. Hello, I've dropped the camera. Right. On the end of the one-way bearing, there is some writing. You can't see it because the camera's not bloody focusing, but there is some writing on the end of that anyway. and that basically has a little arrow on it, which shows the rotation, and it has, I think it says HF0612, I think is what it says on it, from what I can see. So it's written very, very small on the face of that. The writing on the cheap Chinese copy ones is not very neat. It's quite manky looking and sort of scratched in, and it doesn't look very professionally done. But also, the silver part here on the top that you can see is much more rounded on the cheap Chinese ones. So it's not flat, it's not got a flat face on it. The top part of the bearing kind of curves over like that, and it should just be flat. It should be flat, and then there's a slight curve, and then a straight edge. The cheap Chinese copy ones, it's not flat, the whole thing's rounded, and then it just curves straight over, as well as the writing being pretty bad. On the decent bearings, which is made by the Polestar King guy, they are much neater, they look much better quality, and you can, excuse me again, you can tell by looking at them that the quality of the writing is much, much better. Again, you're probably not going to see this on camera, but I will try and show you anyway. Right, so this is his one. I doubt you can see that, but the writing is much neater on there. It says the same thing, but it's much, much neater. And this top part here, the silver bit, it's flat on the top. On the very top is flat, and it only curves over on the edge, and then obviously you've got the nut on the side. So that's basically how to spot the differences between cheap one-way bearings and good one-way bearing. Other than the obvious, which is the cost. Don't be fooled by buying a £3 one or even a £6 one on eBay, because they will be crap. So you do need to spend probably £10 upwards on a one-way bearing, and then your issues of starting should be cured. That, I think, for today is probably about it. I've bored you for long enough. Nearly half an hour now I've bored you. I'm starting to bore myself as well. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope it has answered any questions for you, and I hope it might have helped anyone who has had similar issues to me with the starting. So yeah, once again, thanks very much, and thanks very much for watching. See you later.